All right, folks, we are continuing our coverage in the Judge Jumper attempted murder trial in Nevada. Defendant Deobra Redden unexpectedly pleaded guilty to all the charges, vacating his previous plea and entering a new plea. Well, let's get you back into court now, where the judge is still addressing the defendant.
Okay, at this time, I am going to allow Mr. Redden to withdraw his original guilty pleas to counts 2 through 7, and it is the finding of the court the defendant is fully competent and capable of entering an informed plea with respect to the 7 counts, and that your plea of guilty but mentally ill is a knowing and voluntary plea supported by an independent basis in fact, containing the essential elements of the offense charged, and for that reason this court accepts your guilty pleas. We need to give this gentleman a sentencing date.
Yes, and I believe the defense counsel was requesting 60 days.
Yes, Your Honor.
60 days?
Yes, Your Honor.
I think we can accommodate that.
Court's indulgence, Your Honor.
Sure.
Judge, just for the record, was the Mr. Arnold's acknowledgement attached to the guilty plea agreement?
I've got it. Yes. Certificate of counsel?
Yes.
It's there.
Thank you.
Okay. And go ahead.
November the 7th, would you like a special time, Your Honor?
Do you want a special time?
Yes, please.
Usually I have my calendar at 8:30. Do you want to do it after? Or do you want to do it in the afternoon?
We can do 10:30 or 11, or we can do it afternoon. Whatever. Afternoon would be better.
Oh, now this shouldn't be a Wednesday.
No. I'm saying on the Thursday.
Okay. Yeah, because I have gotten where I just don't settle on. There's just no way I can get it done. Right now we've got 6 criminal sessions on that. I could probably do it at noon if you want to just do it at noon.
Whatever Mr. Arnold's preference is.
That's fine, Your Honor.
Okay. We'll just take a later lunch, okay?
November the 7th at noon.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Clerk, I'd like these documents, Dr. Paglini's report, left side filed, as well as Leah Rowley, Dr. Leah Rowley's report, left side filed. Okay? Okay. And thank you very much. Well, wait, Mr. Arnold, do you want to take the defendant out now? I was going to tell the jury.
All right, so surprising events again out there in Las Vegas. Sentencing is now set for November 7th for Deobra Redden. Again, he is facing at least 90 years or so if he gets the maximum on all these 7 charges that he's facing here. Let's bring in our guest, still with us to discuss, his federal trial attorney, Alexis Rosenberg. Alexis, I want to get your reaction to the events of the last 10, 15 minutes. Pretty shocking stuff.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I didn't see that coming for sure. So we've got him entering this plea, which is interesting because, like you said, he's still facing a lot of time. I mean, a lot of time. I think that, he was sitting there with his attorneys, and his attorneys were like, this isn't going very well for us. Like we discussed, we said there's pretty damning testimony coming, especially from the judge.
So what do you think was the impetus for the state to decide to deal? Because when he offered the deal a couple of days ago before the trial started, right after jury selection, he was basically a naked plea where the state wasn't really supporting it and wasn't giving any recommendations, et cetera, et cetera. But now this is an effort between both sides. What do you think might have spurred the state to take this step?
Well, I think the testimony about how, from the clerk saying that he was calm, and it just seemed like it was a snap, which would be consistent with some insanity, that you had this person, he came in, he's very calm, he's talking to different people in the courtroom, and then all of a sudden this happened. As well as I think they had a problem with, the actual who hit who because of the chaos. We know the first one he jumped, and even from the video that you're playing now, we're not actually seeing that he's making contact on this video so much with the judge.
Yeah, and again, as I mentioned, I think there weren't any visible injuries as far as on her head. We heard testimony that he slammed her head against the wall, but there were no bruising to her head, neck area, et cetera, et cetera. So all those things, I gave both sides this sort of impetus to go forward and make this deal. Now, again, comment on the idea that now the preponderance, the burden shifts to the defense now. When they go to sentencing, I would imagine they're going to have to bring in experts to testify that, in fact, there was some mental illness involved here. He's in a good position because there had been a previous diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia. He even said to the judge as they began, he said, look, as long as I'm on my medication, I'm competent, I can understand and agree to these things. So talk to me about that shifting of the burden here to the defense to prove that there was some sort of mental illness here.
Michael, you bring up a good point. And the judge even acknowledged at one point, she said, yes, we know that you were on these medications and so forth, but that wasn't my question. And, to bring up another point, preponderance is a much lower level. I mean, when we're comparing that to reasonable doubt. I think that it's going to be fairly easy for the defense to show that there was mental illness and that he was on medication. I don't think that that's going to be difficult for them.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, folks, I want to alarm you now to some breaking news from Georgia. The father of the teen shooting suspect from yesterday's deadly high school shooting has been arrested. 14-year-old Colt Gray is also under arrest for killing 4. Well, Gray's father, 54-year-old Colin Gray, is charged with second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. The shooter's father reportedly bought his son the AR-15 used in the shooting as a Christmas gift last year. He reportedly bought the gun after being questioned by sheriff's deputies for a previous school threat. 14-year-old Colt Gray is charged with murder and is being treated as an adult by the system. Again, 2 students and 2 teachers are among the dead. 9 others were injured. They're expected to be fined, so that's good news. Colt Gray will be in court tomorrow morning for his first appearance. All right, let's bring Alexis Rosenberg back in, federal trial attorney. Alexis, not a surprise. I've been saying all along, once there was this initial report last year that there might have been some issues, I said the father better watch out. I didn't know the circumstances with the family, but now we're finding out that, in fact, after the police came to their home, talking about a possible situation where there were threats made to the school, they didn't arrest anybody, didn't have enough evidence. Apparently after, at least according to this report, he buys him this AR-15 style rifle, which was then used in the shooting. He is now arrested. Your thoughts?
I agree. I think he should be arrested. I mean, this is ridiculous. The FBI was even involved in the initial investigation as to the threats, and now and I believe that they advised that he needed to keep the guns that were already in the home locked up so the son didn't have access. To then go out and buy the son a firearm, I mean, it's just that to me is insane. This is the worst nightmare of any parent who has school-age children. So I think this was the right move, and I'm glad that the system is moving towards holding these parents accountable.
That's interesting, because that's what I was going to ask you about, that move. We saw what happened in Michigan, clearly, convictions there. Again, we don't know what the background of this young man is. I think a big thing in that case in Michigan was this idea that there were plenty of signs. Now, I agree. I think holding parents responsible under these circumstances is important, but do you agree that there would need to be some sense of there was a problem with this child? Because again, this is America. Buying guns for young men in certain parts of this country is just a rite of passage. You don't want to criminalize that. But again, I would imagine there may have been some issues there that they should have been aware of.
I'm not licensed in Georgia, and I definitely am not a gun expert in the state of Georgia, but I would assume that there's a law that a 14-year-old cannot go out and buy his own gun for himself. So, I think that there has to be some accountability. And like you said, in this specific case, there was notice. There was some sort of notice. There was an investigation that he was possibly connected to that previous threat, even though it ultimately there wasn't enough evidence to substantiate charges being brought.
Yeah, now the father, when the police talked to him, he said he never dealt with, the child was never allowed to deal with guns. He admitted to having plenty of guns in the house, but he said that his son was never allowed to use them unsupervised. Apparently, he bought this gun for his son. And the son then, I guess, took it and did this with it. Ultimately, again, it probably wasn't locked up. So under those circumstances, I would agree. I think, at the end of the day, there has to be this sort of, accountability on the part of the parents. But finally, quickly, he's being treated as an adult. The young boy, Colt Gray, is. Do you agree with that? They made that announcement yesterday. It kind of bothered me. I don't know how much they knew about him at the time, but already announcing he would be treated as an adult, I guess affected me a little bit as a defense attorney. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I'm going to get some comments for this because I have in the past, but I have a personal problem with children being charged as adults. I personally think, especially when this is so far, we don't have a 17-and-a-half-year-old here.
All right. Well, just going to keep following the developments in this case for sure. Alexis Rosenberg, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Yeah,
Truly
I'm still
appreciate all your insights. I'm Michael Ayala. It's been a pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for being with me. Coming up next, it's Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan. We'll have a live report near the scene of the deadly high school shooting in Georgia. And Vinnie Politan takes a look at the latest details coming out of the investigation into the teenage mass shooting suspect. So keep it here on Court TV.